Okay, assuming you can turn on a table saw and a miter saw, let's put them to use and make a picture frame. One with nice mitered corners and a bevel on the inside and a rabbet on the back. And even if you haven't lost 3 pets in 3 years and gone through that process with your kids, I bet you've got some special memory that might be nice to put in a frame and give to someone that you love. We're going to size the frame for 5" by 7" picture frame glass because it's a popular size and it'll drop right in. But here's a warning, don't become distracted and accidentally make a 4" by 7" picture frame. This is remarkably easy to do, and you will curse your own foolishness, so measure carefully when the measurements matter. We're going to cut it all from this single piece of rough-sawn lumber by planing one face flat, turning it 90 degrees to put a corner on it, running it through the thickness planer to bring it to dimension, ripping it in the table saw to make our final side. Then we'll cut the rabbet, cut the miters, and glue it all up in a picture frame clamp. Okay, let's get started. Get yourself a piece of 2.5" by 1" by 16" rough-sawn poplar, and I would recommend getting the worst piece you can find, the weirdest, wiggliest, grainiest, knottiest, worst piece you can. You'll learn the most about the wood that way. Look at how my piece rocks across the diagonal when placed on the perfectly flat steel table of the table saw. We're going to fix that first. Look at how the corner of my piece is in no way square. It's not 90 degrees. We're going to fix that second. So let's make this broad face of our rough stock flat. And to do so, we're going to use the jointer. This machine has the capacity to do significant damage to your body if used inappropriately. So let's talk about the dangerous part and how you can use the tools nearby to keep your body away from the spinning blade. First, with the machine off, do a dry run of what is going to happen. Push your material gently through and notice how this spring-loaded guard only swings open to reveal as much of the blade as necessary, and soon after it's open, the blade gets covered by your piece of wood. And then as your material passes over, the spring-loaded guard shuts again. This is helpful, but if something were to happen and my wood were to vanish, I'm the next one in line to be gobbled up by the blade. Let's make that scenario better by using this rubber pusher. It's got an offset handle so that I can choose a side that fits my hand. It's got a rubber pad on the bottom so I have enough friction to push down and forward on the top of my wood, and it affords me a layer of protection. Now, if my wood were to suddenly vanish, it's the pusher next in line instead of me. Great. But what is this tool actually doing? Well, if I pull the guard away while the machine is off, I can see the blade. Notice how it separates the two tables, the in-feed table on the right and the out-feed table. My material is going to start on the in-feed table and end up on the out-feed table, and the two tables are at different heights. Crouch down low and place something flat on the out-feed table. It'll make contact there, and it'll be a little bit in the air on the in-feed table. This is how the machine shaves off a little bit of your material with every pass. So let's try it. At this point, stop and find the individual trained to observe this moment and bring them by to watch your setup and to watch your body position. It's critical that someone trained is there to offer feedback if they notice anything, and that you have a chance to ask any questions before you proceed. Good. With the observer nearby, make sure the guard is closed, make sure any dust is off of the in-feed table, load your material down on the in-feed table and tight to the fence, and then get your pusher on it such that you can maintain pressure down and towards the fence. Then start the machine with the green button and push your material through, keeping a little bit of pressure against the fence until you're well on your way. Good. Now look at what you got. Remember how my piece rocked back and forth across the diagonal? Look at what we took off. There was a high spot on this twisted board at either corner. We're starting to flatten my material into a flat plane. Send it through again and notice how we're most of the way to flat and planar. One more time through and we're all the way there. This is a good starting point. So power down the machine and indicate on this surface that it was the flat plane that started it all. You don't have to be as verbose as me, but you do have to remember that this was the flat that came first. It's critical because the jointer has this fence set precisely to 90 degrees to the in-feed table. It allows us to create a second flat that is precisely 90 degrees to our initial flat plane. And if you're looking at your raw material going, mine already looks like it's pretty good, I would caution you against assuming that you have a 90-degree corner until you've run it through this procedure in the jointer. The procedure is to take your initial flat plane and lean it up against your fence and hold it tight to the fence as you pass your material through the jointer. For me, it made sense to flip my pusher around so that the handle was better situated on top of the wood now that the narrow side was up. And here you can see I'm using my other hand to push the material tight to the fence. And my thinking here is that the pressure from this hand, if my material were to suddenly vanish, would go into the fence, not down into the blade. Good. Now I've got stock that is flat on one side with a secondary flat that is perpendicular to it, as proved by this square. Now is the time to indicate with a pencil that you have high confidence in the perpendicularity of this secondary plane. Now we're well set up to deal with this rough face, but to do so is going to take an entirely different piece of equipment. See if you can figure out why before we dive in the next video.